Welcome back to Hardball. We continue to watch the celebrations actually in Cairo. Look at them right now live after the military ousted Egypt's elected government over there. And we're going to have more on that in just a minute. But first, the latest in the George Zimmerman case with MSNBC legal analyst Lisa Bloom. And right now, Joseph Haynes Davis, a criminal defense attorney in Florida. Mr. Davis, I got to get to you because I know you have to leave. Let me give you something you haven't been asked, because this is what I love to do on this show.
Yes, sir.
Suppose everybody, and by the way, I'm surrounded by people who think he's guilty, Zimmerman. All my family, my liberal sons, my liberal wife, everybody thinks the Zimmerman's the bad guy. So I live in that world. I have some other people that have different views too.
I understand.
Now my question to you is that it's a really scary one, okay? Imagine that somebody was 10 feet away from this horror that happened that night in Sanford and took a crystal clear picture of everything that happened from the time these two guys met, however he came out of the bushes, didn't come out of the bushes, walked toward him, didn't walk toward him, everything, including what looked to be a fight that ended up in some kind of wrestling match that ended up with a gun going off. I still think people will have different verdicts. And the reason I say that, I'm asking you, I should say,
yes,
is because people talk about the surrounding context. They talk about the fact he shouldn't have gotten out of his car before the encounter occurred. He shouldn't have had all this police mentality going through his head. He isn't a cop. Why was he thinking like one? And all that, and they'd say, well, that's what matters, not what happened in the scuffle. And then other people would say, no, it's the scuffle that matters. It's what actually happened. So my question to you is that a problem we have here, that even the facts aren't going to clear this case?
It might be, but Chris, it's my understanding that some of the jurors, up to 4 of them, are familiar with quote-unquote guns, it has been reported. And as a result, I believe that the fact that he left the car in light of something suspicious, for me, is telling. Now, again, ethically, because I'm a member of the bar and it's a case in front of a court that I practice in front of periodically, I'm not going to sit here and make a prediction or do anything unethical on the Chris Matthews show. But I can say, as a concealed weapons holder, when you see trouble, you report it and you walk away and you stay within your safe zones. That's how we are trained. That's how we think.
But is the penalty for that murder too?
It quite possibly can be, depending on a sequestered jury panel.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us. We'll get back to you next time we can get a hold of you. We want you back. Joseph Haynes Davis, criminal attorney. He practices down there. Let me go to Lisa Bloom for perhaps. I remember you saying the other night, of course, I'm always looking for controversy here. And I heard you the other night said the only thing that matters in this case is not the box it came in, not all the racial history, the 450 years of bad history in many cases, and all kinds of questions about police and everything else in our system, and not the question whether this guy was thought he was a cop or possible vigilantism. The only thing that mattered was what happened when these two guys met, and who ended up feeling that they were in danger of losing their life or facing grievous bodily injury and therefore drew the gun and used it. Do you stick to that?
Well, I think what I said was that the legal question is, at the moment that George Zimmerman pulled the trigger and took the life of this teenager, was he reasonably in fear of great bodily injury or death? That's the legal standard. And that's such a difficult question to answer because you do have to take into account the entire context. You know, here's a piece of evidence in this case, Chris.
Why do you have to take into context?
Has talked about, but I think
you're saying it differently this time.
What?
Lisa, you've changed the way you're saying it. Why is the context, the box that came in, why is it, if you said the question is his mindset, was he in danger, he thought, of great bodily injury or death? If he thought that at the time.
Reasonably fear.
Well, if he's right in his testimony, if he's right, his head was being pounded into the sidewalk. That's his testimony. If it's true, or isn't it true? We don't know. But if it's true, was he within his rights to make that judgment?
Okay, but the prosecution says his injuries weren't that bad. Maybe his head was pounded once. Maybe he got punched once. Maybe he was just scratched up a little bit.
How many times would you let your head be pounded?
You're in a fight in America. You can't take out a gun and shoot and kill someone.
But if it's true, how many times would you let your head be pounded into the cement if it's true, if it happened that way? How many times would you go for it? 2, 3?
But then you get into, but look, I wouldn't assume an African-American kid walking around in my neighborhood is up to no good. Follow him against the advice of police, you know.
Sure, that's all part of the story. But I ask you, but you're the lawyer, what is the criminal charge here? Murder 2. What has that got to do with his mindset 10 minutes before? What's the mindset 10 minutes before had to do with it?
It has a lot to do with it. It has a lot to do with it because a finding of murder 2 is a finding that he intentionally took this life with a depraved mind. And can I just quickly tell you about this piece of evidence that I think is important that nobody's talking about? Yeah. George Zimmerman had a bluff from the lead investigator who said, you know what, we have a videotape of this incident. Turns out there is no videotape of the incident, but Zimmerman responded with elation. He was so hopeful. He said, oh, I'm so glad. I hope there is a videotape.
Which
in
tells
fact,
you?
he pointed out some video cameras in the community that he hoped would lead them to a videotape.
Which tells
Doesn't
you?
that tell you something?
What's it tell you?
Well, it tells me that he thinks that his story is true, whether it's true or not. When he says Trayvon Martin was on top, attacking him and assaulting him, either he was very hopeful there was a videotape, or he's an extremely good actor.
And if the videotape did tell the story that he told, would he be innocent?
If he was getting his head pounded and he was getting punched in the face, and as he says, Trayvon Martin threatened to kill him and reached for the gun, clearly that would be a self-defense acquittal verdict.
Yeah. Well, Lisa Bloom, please, thank you for joining us again. We'll have you back as often as we can get you. Thanks for joining us, Lisa Bloom. When we return, millions of Egyptians are celebrating right now, at this minute, near midnight over there, the ouster of the country's Islamist president, the one they elected. What does the military coup mean for our own country? That's always my question. U.S. interests here. United States, how are we doing in this thing? Looks like we have nothing to do with it. This is Hardball, the place for politics.